me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I apologize if I'm a few minutes late. It's been one of those days.
Hey, that happens. Happens to the best of us for sure. So, hey, well, I wanted to congratulate you on your new CD compilation, "Wake the Beast." It's coming out this Friday, correct?
Yeah, I believe it's the 30th.
Okay, very good. Now, so how did this CD come about after all of your recording history?
Well, it's certainly been a while in the making, I can assure you that. Really, it came to fruition because we got the legal rights back to all of our masters. For years we were signed to record labels, and we still are, in Japan and Europe, and they controlled the rights.
Okay.
So, over the years, it's interesting because I think the success, the luck, whatever it is in Japan that the band has kind of spilled over into other markets, right? So a lot of new people have become very curious about who we are, right? Is Impellitteri a disease or is it a rock band? So, so in all sincerity, I mean, we've had so much interest in the band, but the problem was the music, the majority of it was not accessible, right?
Ah,
To everybody without paying exorbitant, import or export prices.
right.
So we said as soon as we could get legal rights back to it, we would finally release this compilation of music. So hence that's really what's happening.
Okay, very good. So, it's a three CD set. Now, how many songs are on this?
Oh my gosh, I think there's at least 10 songs per CD, so at least 30 songs, I guess, in that
Wow.
range.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Now, over the course of the career of your band, how many albums have you put out internationally?
I think we've done 11 or 12 records so far. And we
Okay.
tend to do our records quite far apart. We'll do a record and usually, we'll go do the tours, places like Japan, continental Europe. And then usually we take like 3 years in between the records at least to do the next one. So
Gotcha.
that's
Yeah,
kind of the impellitory way.
for sure. So this compilation is like the best of all the of your albums that you have put out, so fans can get an idea of what your catalog is all about.
Yeah, I think so. People have asked me, how did we choose these songs?
Right.
Over years, playing a lot of concerts, playing to our fan base, they kind of let us know what they like or disapprove of. And, the same thing applies to, when kids would like rip one of our songs from our CDs and upload it to YouTube, you can read comments and start to get a sense of, wow, if the comments are like, oh my God, this is the greatest band ever. We love them. Why aren't they bigger? We know, oh, that must be a good song. Versus if someone goes, oh my God, these guys suck. What are people thinking? We know probably that's not the right song.
Right. Not too hard to figure out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so you're back with working with the original singer Rob Rock, but a lot of tracks feature Graham Bonnet as well, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So how did you first meet up with Graham?
Well, after we did the very first record, which was called the Impellitteri Black EP,
Mm.
um, we spent probably like a year or two promoting that. We built a really big buzz, especially in places like California, like the Hollywood scene, the
Mhm.
Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip. We had a lot of people talking about Impellitteri, and we had a lot of fans that were starting to really support the band. And we got signed to Relativity Records through Sony Entertainment. And I'll never forget Rob Rock. And this is when everything's taken off. I mean, magazines are, giving us 5 out of 5 reviews, like Kerrang magazine, where our shows are killing it. And our singer Rob Rock decides he wants to go and do something else.
Mm.
So we're like, great, what do we do now? Because he's half the sound of the band.
Right.
So he left, went to work with Dieter Dirks, who was a producer who was producing the band The Scorpions at the time.
Mm.
And I didn't have a singer, and we just got signed. So we're like, we're screwed. And I remember I ran across Graham, and we were friends. And Graham and I started talking. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? I go, I don't know, man. I'm bummed. My singer just quit. And I said, what are you doing? And I remember Graham had just ended this band, Alcatraz, which, it had gotten some nice traction, especially in Japan and Europe, a little bit in America. And they did a couple records. And, I guess it was the end of their third record, he ended it. And we started talking and we decided, all right, let's try writing together. And so that was it. I remember I went to his house actually, And the first song we wrote was a song called Stand in Line, which became the title track of that particular album.
Sure.
But literally that's how the whole thing came about initially.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
So did you guys open for bands on the Stand in Line with that album, with that tour, or were you like your own headliners playing clubs around that time?
You'll laugh at this, but we were more like playing arenas headlining, and not in America.
Okay.
Like typical like Japan, overseas, stuff like that. We although we did play one date, as a matter of fact, it was the last date Graham Bonnet did with us. We did a co-headlining date. It was up at the San Jose Civic Center, completely sold out. I don't remember how big the venue was, maybe 5,000 people. I remember it was sold out, an amazing show. It was Impellitteri, and the other artist was Pat Travers' band, who was really big in the like late 70s, early 80s.
Absolutely.
And I remember it was an amazing show. And it's funny, this is kind of how Graham, at least the first time, how he ends up exiting. We come back, go back to LA, because we had already done, I mean, our first show in Japan, we played the Tokyo Dome, which was 65,000 seat stadium, right? And that was a big festival with other artists, but it was insane. So the band, especially in Japan, was just exploding. And I got to be honest, the Stand in Line record is not my favorite record. I love Graham on it, but it never felt like a real Impellitteri record. I know that's shocking to some people, but if you listen to the Impellitteri Black EP with songs like Lost in the Rain, or even listen to one of our recent records like Venom, you kind of hear our sound, right? Stand in Line was completely, whoa, let's not do that, because I wasn't sure that was right for Graham's voice. Instead, at that time, we decided, hey, why don't we do a tribute to his band Rainbow? That might be more suited for, his style. But anyway, so we came back to the United States. We did, I'm sorry, the San Jose Civic Auditorium was the last show up near San Francisco. Then I know what it was. So we get back. Graham had to go to Australia. He was having some issues with a wife. And so he flew to Australia, and we get a call from our management company, like, really good news. We're like, what? They go, you've got the whole ending of the Iron Maiden tour. You start in Florida with Iron Maiden. We're like, yes, this is going to kick ass. And then, of course, here it comes again. I don't know, maybe 10 days later, get a call from Graham. He's in Australia. He can't come back. The marriage is in trouble. He's got to save the marriage. And we're like, well, here we go again,
Right.
It's like, I should have written the song with Coverdale. Here I go again. So anyway, so out goes Graham. We had a bunch of singers that wanted to join the band. We auditioned a lot of very well-known people, believe it or not. And then we basically crossed paths with Rob Rock. The thing that he did in Germany with Dieter Dierks really didn't come to fruition. And so we decided to reform, and that's kind of where we are today.
Wow.
With a little blip. Yeah.
Right. Now, I wonder why, and you hear this a lot of times with some bands, American bands, that they're really huge in Japan or Asia, but not as big in America. I just wonder what the disconnect is sometimes, or I'm sure you're happy to to play to sold out places in Asia for sure. But I was just wondering, like, what the connection to the band there is more so than in Europe or the United States, or vice versa.
Oh, easy. So in Japan, you have to earn respect through your music. The PR machine trying to creatively spin or convince people you're good doesn't work. In the United States, what we felt, and for me, I don't mean to be negative, this is not my intent, but there's a lot of media, even metal media, who completely ignore us. And we get a lot of our fans who write us and complain and say, we don't understand. You guys are this amazing metal band, and they give us all the complimentary kind of stuff. But I really feel for them, because I can hear their frustration. And it's so true, because, look, in America, it really is who you know. I mean, I don't want to come off as a negative person, because I love a lot of the big metal bands that do well in America. But, I listen to a lot of these bands, and I'm like, I get calls from half these bands telling them how much they love our band.
Sure.
Right. And how somehow they've affected them. I get these amazing guitar players that are in some of the biggest metal bands in the world calling me, go, dude, I love your music. What the fuck? Why aren't you guys bigger? Forget my language, but
Oh no, right.
And it's, but I believe the reason that it's almost like Japan was segmented or very unique, because you had to earn it. I don't know how many records we've sold. They tell me we've sold millions of records in Japan alone. So, I'm not exactly sure what the real numbers are, but the reality is we've had a lot of success there. and we've had to earn it through our live performances, our music, our records. We've had to work really hard for it. You know, and I do hear people say, "Oh yeah, if you can't get successful here, go to Japan." That's not the case. I mean, to be fair, yeah, some people might go there and get a little bit of respect or a little bit of love, a little bit of attention.
Right.
But you know, when we go there, we compete with bands like Metallica and Ozzy for the covers of these magazines. You
Mm.
know, I mean, Burn Magazine, I remember they voted me best rock guitarist of, I think it was the Screaming Symphony record. Our records are always, heavily promoted on TV and radio. You know, our shows tend to sell out, so there's something there,
Yeah.
but I do think it's work. That's what's got us there, not who we knew,
Right.
right? Or
Hey,
favoritism.
nothing wrong with hard work, man. That's for sure. Um, Playing across the states, I'm based out of Cleveland. Have you any memories of playing in Cleveland?
So actually, I do. I
Oh,
think there
good.
was a place called the Agora. No, was it the? Oh, forgive me. Not
Cleveland
the Agora
Agora?
Ballroom. Agora
Yeah,
Ballroom. Is that what it's
the
called?
Agora. Yeah.
I yeah. So when I was in high school, right, I was really into like Van Halen and Gary Moore and all these guitar players. But I had opened for this AC/DC tribute band out of New York who was huge. They were called QT Hush, really, really big. And their guitar player quit, and we were the opening band. And they asked me if I wanted to join it, and I was like, okay. And these guys, I remember going to see them play the first time before he opened for them. And I'm not kidding. These guys were playing in front of like 3,000 people a night doing a tribute. And so
Wow.
I actually joined this tribute band, did Angus for like a year or two. And we used to play all those like Agora ballrooms around the place. Like I know we did them in like Hartford, New Haven, Connecticut. And I think we did, I think it was Cleveland, Ohio.
Hmm.
But this would have been like, I would have been in high school. So this is probably like 82
Wow.
around there. So
Wow.
many, many years ago.
Very
That's what I
cool.
remember. But with Impellitteri, no. I mean, it's always
No.
been like we did a couple of years ago before we went to I don't know if we were doing Europe. We were doing some big festivals, but we wanted to do some warm-up dates. So we flew to the East Coast. We did Connecticut, we did New Jersey, and I believe we did New York City.
Okay.
We did some shows there, which were a blast. We had a lot of fun, but we haven't done Cleveland, not as a band, which we
Right.
really do need to do because
Yeah.
Cleveland's an awesome place.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get back here for sure. We got a big metal fan base here for sure. So we'd
So
love to
I've
have
heard, yeah,
we'd love to have you. And the Agora's still there. That's they moved places, from like maybe early 80s, but they've been in the same building for 40 years. But yeah, for
that's
sure.
so cool. That's
Yeah.
great.
But so looking back on your career, when did you know you wanted to be a musician?
Um, I started playing guitar, I think it was 12 years old. And I'd say within a year, I got really addicted to the instrument. Just, it was like this beautiful tool that I could express myself emotionally, right? And it just became something that I couldn't put down. And then of course my grandmother, because I grew up with my grandparents, my grandmother bought me tickets. Actually, she was the one who started me playing. She bought me my first guitar, paid for my guitar lessons for the first 4 or 5 years. God bless her soul. And so I really got addicted to it. But then she bought me concert tickets to see this band Kiss, and I think I was in like fourth grade or fifth grade. It was like in 1976 or 77. I think it was the Rock and Roll Over tour, but it was the same set as her Destroyer tour. And I remember seeing Gene and Paul come running down the stairs, opening up with Detroit Rock City, the bombs going off. And even though I
Wow.
was much more into bands like Thin Lizzy, Queen, and then eventually Van Halen, Kiss's show just was like, whoa, I got to do that. So
Nice.
that was a huge, huge kind of influence on me.
Yeah, absolutely. So besides, that was my next question. Besides Kiss, who else was an early influence? You mentioned Queen. Any other bands that you were like, man, this is what
Yeah,
I
well,
like?
the early ones. I mean, when we're talking really young, like 12 through maybe 15 to 16 area, right? Heavily Thin Lizzy, right? Loved Gary Moore, um, loved Queen, but the heavy side of Queen.
Right.
Right. I mean, you can even hear that. If you hear the opening track of the anthology Victim of the System, you can hear that's heavily influenced by what's it called? Stone Cold Crazy.
Oh yeah.
Right. And when we did that record, we were really showing our influence on how much we loved Queen. We did a song called Cross the Bear, was our attempt at doing like Bohemian Rhapsody, because we just love those guys. But that was like, when I was a really young kid. And then of course Eddie Van Halen and then Randy Rhoads with Ozzy. Those two guys really got I mean, they had such a huge influence on me, you know, as a guitar player. And then later
Sure.
guys, the technical guys like John McLaughlin, Al Di Meola, Paco de Lucia, you know, these guys are, Paco's this historic flamenco, amazing guy, just crazy shredding.
Sure.
I really got into those guys for the soloing part of what I do, you
Right.
know. But it was probably, yeah, I'd probably say those were the hand of suspects that really, you know, put me on this path.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. They're all great guitarists. So when did you end up meeting with Rob Rock to form Impellitteri?
Sure. So Rob Rock and I met. I was actually loaning some of my equipment to Greg Allman. Greg Allman, he was famous for being in a band called the Allman Brothers, right?
Of
And then
course.
Greg had a solo thing, and I'll never forget. I went to a place. I lent him some equipment. He was playing somewhere in Connecticut. Some. It was actually a club, I believe, big club. So I lent him some gear. Went and said hello, and I remember seeing this opening act. And I was like, who is this singer? This band is incredible. And Rob Rock, and by the way, which is really, this is a true story, but quite humorous. Rob Rock is his true birth surname. People think it's some creepy stage name or whatever.
All
So,
right.
so he used to get so embarrassed by the last name Rock. So when I saw him open for Greg Allman, it was actually called the Robert Allen Band. It was his own band doing covers. But when I heard the guy sing, I was like, dude, this guy's insane. He
Mm.
can sing like Rob Halford screaming, Bruce Dickinson, you know, Dio. He could do all of that stuff, but he was really melodic as well, you know, and he looked cool. So I remember after the show, we met and we started talking. And within 3 days in that same club during the daytime when the place was closed, we brought in a band and we started rehearsing together. And we
Wow.
just, it was instant chemistry, just it worked, you know? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So talking about playing shows, are there any plans for you guys to come out and tour with this new record that's coming out?
So we are going to come out and tour, but it's probably going to be summer of 2023 because we've been in the studio now for probably like over a year recording our next record,
Oh, very
right?
good.
So we have two labels. We have Frontiers, who does Europe and Germany. I'm sorry, Europe and Japan for Impel. I'm sorry, getting this completely wrong. Frontiers does United States, Canada, and Europe. And then we have JVC Victor, who does all of Asia, Australia, New Zealand. So those are our two primary labels, and we owe them another record. So the plan is to probably release the new record somewhere getting close to summer of 2023, followed by a full tour, global tour. So
Okay.
we're going to play anywhere that people will have us. That's the plan.
Very good. So it's kind of like the people that haven't heard you or haven't heard you in a long time. Again, I do remember seeing that video on Headbangers Ball back in the day.
Oh,
Uh,
stand in line.
yeah,
Yeah.
Stand
Yeah.
Alone, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I think it's fantastic. You guys are getting them a taste of what your band's all about. And again, I always love hearing new music. So I'm excited to hear the new stuff that's going to be coming out next year. So, you know, fans will be saying, okay, they know your catalog, and then they even have new stuff to listen
Yeah,
to.
I'm excited. You know, as artists, we're always like, "Oh, our new music is the best." You know, it's like we all say that, right? So, but I can tell you right now, I mean, the 12 songs we've written and some of the stuff's already recorded, we're smiling. We're very excited about it. So, but you know, you never know. I mean, for me, to be honest, I need to get away from a record for at least a year, listen
Mm.
back, and go, "Oh my God, it's horrible. What were we thinking?" You know. So, but right now, what we've heard, it's pretty stellar. We're really excited about it. So, hopefully, it turns out as good as we hear it is in our ears now.
Sure, absolutely. All right. Well, Chris, I will get the word out about your record. And again, you guys come across the Cleveland area, I will be sure to check you guys out. I'm very excited to see you come out and start shredding again.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, best of luck to you.
All right. Thanks, man. Cheers.
All right. Yeah, we'll see you. Yep. Bye.